in times past, we had our conversation in the desires of the flesh and the lust thereof. This is from Ephesians chapter 2, and I read this and I say, wow, that's a pretty good description of what I hear and perceive as I just go through life and just observe people. And I listen to conversations, and it reminds me of what Jesus talked about in the Gospel of Matthew when he said that people respond with their mouth what's in their heart. He says, basically this, to say that out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And so what I see here, as the apostle has laid it out to us, is that people who are not spiritual and have no desire to be spiritual and are not even aware that they are spiritual, they're following, as he says in the previous verse here, the prince of the air. And their conversation is his conversation. So they're just speaking right out of their heart. Their mouth brings it forth and reveals what's going on in their life, and there's certainly no desire for anything that has to do with God or a relationship with God, to understand the spiritual nature and makeup of this. But then I find in the scripture the contrast of this, where the scripture says, walk in the Spirit. And when a person is walking in the Spirit, then his conversation is going to be quite different. It reminds me of this. If you get excited about something, you can't help but to talk about it. It just fills your heart. I shared this with somebody back during the holidays, and I said, there was a time in my life when I was so excited about radio. And God had called me back to it after a 20-year absence, and I was just excited. And I talked radio to everybody until I began to realize that people were beginning to walk away from me. In other words, they see me, they're trying to avoid me. And I realized I'm just driving people crazy with this. And so I said, I tell you what, I won't talk about it unless somebody else brings it up. And that was a long time ago, and that's probably has been a good decision. But the point is that I was excited about it. And because I was excited about it, I want to talk about it. Well, somebody who is excited about God and excited about spiritual things, that's what's going to be on their heart and their mind, and that's what they want to talk about. Now, I know everything has to be tempered. But the thing is, if lust and things that are unholy, if these things are in your heart, then that's what you're going to talk about. I spent 4 years on an aircraft carrier. I know about things that people talk about that are not of the content of a spiritual person. I know all about that. But I also know this, that God has called us to righteousness and holiness. And if you are a person who says, I'm a child of God, then your conversation ought to reflect that. Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.